Hi everyone, welcome to the MrpTech podcast. This is episode 127. My name is Matt, and this is the weekly podcast discussing everyday tech for everyday people. And in this week's episode, I'd like to talk to you about something that I brought up in this show a couple of years ago, and I'd like to revisit for all of you today. That project is the Android x86 project. Now, if you've never heard of the Android x86 project, it is a project that is built to run Android on your home PC. So you can install this on any computer that's on the x86 platform, most laptops, desktops, etc. This project is a project that I keep returning to quite often because I enjoy the idea of this project. Now, when it comes to mobile devices, normally I have Apple devices. I have an iPhone, I have an iPad. I do have a Kindle that I use for very limited things. Sometimes I like to test Android apps on it. And although it's based off Android, it isn't quite Android. So what I like to do from time to time, and it's been about 2 years since I looked at this project, is take a look at the projects out there that are aiming to build Android on and make it usable with like a laptop. So the Android x86 project is a project to port the Android open source project to the x86 platform. Formerly, it was known as patching the host for Android x86 support. So they sort of came up with a better name for it. The original plan is to host different patches for x86 support from the open source community. And a few months after they created the project, that they found out they could actually do much more than just hosting the patches. So they decided to create their own code base, provide support on different x86 platforms, and then from there was born the x86 project. It is an open source project. It's under the Apache Public License 2.0 and also has some components licensed under the GNU Public License, the GPL2 license as well. You can donate to this project by going to their website, androidx86.org, if you'd like to support that project. But I want to tell you, just from the very beginning, this project has come a long way in a relatively short period of time. Now, I believe, just kind of looking through their website, they keep track of all the releases. I believe the last release that I used was the Android x86 4.4 release. And maybe it's been a little longer than I thought. Here's what I did, okay? I had an old test laptop a while back. It was a Dell laptop, and not the greatest laptop. And when I installed Android to it, I was missing a lot of support from, say, Wi-Fi drivers and Bluetooth. And while it was fun to use, it wasn't something that I could use every day, which kind of make it difficult. So from there, what I did is I actually created a bootable flash drive with Android x86 on it. And there's a couple different ways I did it. The first thing I did is I booted it up onto a laptop and ran the install onto another USB device. And I installed Android completely on the USB drive, and I could carry it around, and basically any computer that I wanted to boot up on, I could plug it in and run it as a live system. But the great thing about that was that all of my settings would stay, all of my credentials would be there, just as if it were a tablet itself. And so that became a little bit more mobile for me. Another way I did it, and I'm not exactly sure how I did this at one point in time, but I actually had an install a live USB that I booted up onto a laptop, but I had created a partition on that same USB drive, and I actually somehow managed to, from that USB drive, install Android back onto the same Android, install the Android system back onto the same USB drive. And I'm guessing because the partitions were separate that it was able to do it, but I had never done that before. And then basically what it did is it gave me a grub file, and I was able to pick either the install medium or the actual installed version of Android. And that was kind of a crazy thing that I had on the flash drive for a while too. And then I think I lost the flash drive, or I used it eventually I reformatted it to try something else. But I really enjoyed having the ability to run Android and run Android apps without actually owning an Android device, which was kind of neat. So if you're ever interested in technology and you just want to try something, because it's open source, you can legally use this, and you will have some functionality with it. So I saw some notes that in October, I believe it was October 18th, that Android x86 8.1, the second release candidate for that, it would be Oreo x86, was released. And a few weeks ago, when I was sort of working on my test machine, I decided I wanted to give Android x86 a try again. And the reason for that is because it occurred to me that I probably was going to have, I wanted to see how far the support has come for things like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and a few other things that I was looking for. So I went to androidx86.org and I downloaded the 8.1 RC2, that's Oreo x86, and put it on a flash drive. I think I used Etcher to flash it to a flash drive, created the bootable medium, and then created a partition on one of my laptops, my test machine, and installed it. And I will tell you that this install went much smoother, much quicker than it had in the past. And boy, I was really impressed with this 8.1 RC2 release. And the reason for that, it seems much more stable. And I think that has to do with it's using Linux kernel 4.18.14. They've made a lot of changes recently. The screen resolution was correct this time. I didn't have to really fuss around with it before. They release a 32-bit ISO file. They release a 64-bit ISO file, and all with checksums available, so you can make sure that the download is safe. And once you get it up and running, you can log in with your Google account if you have a Google account. You don't have to, I don't believe you have to right away, but you can at least get the system up and running. Now, there are some known issues. The Google Play service might crash on a 32-bit image. Most computers, modern computers now are running 64-bit, so that shouldn't run into a lot of issues with a lot of people. Sometimes suspend and resume can be a little tricky on certain devices. But overall, I will tell you that the amount of effort that has gone into this project really impresses me. I believe before, and I could be wrong on this, but before when I was running this, it ran only on a FAT32 file system, but it looks like they have more file systems that are supported: ext3, ext2, NTFS, and FAT32. I believe I installed mine with on the flash drive using FAT32, and it worked just fine. That seems to be what has always worked for me in the past. So step by step, you download the ISO file and you use a program that will flash it to a flash drive. Put the flash drive in your computer. Usually what you do is it's either F7 or F9 or F11 or 12, or sometimes it's even the escape key. You can pick to you push down when you start your computer, and it'll give you the option to boot from that flash drive. Then you decide where you want to install the x86 system, and you can even dual boot it with other operating systems. So when I installed this, I wanted to build a dual boot system, and that dual boot system had Antergos Linux on it, and then it was going to have the second half of the drive was going to be Android x86. Now, when I installed this, Android x86 installed correctly, everything installed, and the Grub bootloader only recognized Android after that. So I could not get into Antergos. It did not delete that partition, just blocked me from being able to see it. Now, I have read workarounds for this where you can actually boot back into Antergos and go into the grub.cfg file and create your own manual addition to the file so that you can dual boot back and forth between two of them. I did not do that, and I wasn't really worried about it. This was just for kind of testing purposes. So what I did is I installed it, logged in, and immediately it started asking me if I wanted to pull down all the apps that I've used before when I used Android. I just wanted to do a clean install and start over, so I did not select that. But had I done that, all the apps that I had picked before, I used to use Android. I used to have an Android phone. I used to have an Android tablet. Those apps would have been pulled down onto my system, and I would have been up and running fairly quickly. So I started off, and the first thing that I noticed about Android x86 is how beautiful it is on a laptop. I mean, it really looks nice. It looks modern. It looks sleek. All the basic apps have functionality. You can browse the web. You can go to the Google Play Store. You can download apps. You have access to a terminal, which is nice. You don't usually have that unless you root your device, that type of thing. It's very easy to enable downloading apps from unknown sources. Basically, you have to just go to, in the settings, go to applications, and then unknown sources, and you get a message and a warning. Just enable it, and then you're good to go, and you can download from some other sources if you choose to. Now, you got to be careful with that, obviously, because if you're downloading from an unsafe place, you may run into some trouble. But it does give you the freedom to be able to do that, which is really nice. Now, you can run Android x86 in a virtual machine. So you can download VirtualBox or use GNOME boxes or any other virtual machine software out there. You can run x86. I have not tried it. I have tried it in the past and ran into some issues with screen resolutions and being correct, that type of thing. But I'd be real interested to see how much that maybe has improved in the last few years. So I haven't tried that. But on an actual system, an Intel system, the Wi-Fi adapters worked this time. I had Bluetooth, which I never had before. And it didn't seem to get as bogged down as it had in the past. And when apps were updating or downloading software before, it would seem to slow to a crawl. And in my case, my experimenting with this, everything seemed to be fast. Everything seemed to be working great. And I'm really impressed with this. Now, what this makes me want to do again is not keep this as a system that I want to run all the time. But again, the idea of being able to just try Android apps. There are a lot of podcast apps out there on Android that I used to really like to use. I really used to like BeyondPod. But there are some newer ones out there that I'd like to try. There are some newer Android apps that I would like to try. And Your mileage will vary depending on what you want to do. If you're someone who wants to try Android games, you might run into a little issue here and there with game support. You can, from what I remember, plug in controllers if you have them. That might make your life a little easier. I do remember seeming to plug in a PlayStation controller at one point via USB and having some limited success with a game. There are also keyboard shortcuts that you can do, and you can turn the screen vertical or horizontal, and you can screen lock so it doesn't switch a lot on you. So depending on what you want to do, you'll be a little limited. And some games aren't built to run on this type of hardware, so you'll have some issues. But if you're just somebody who's looking to experiment and see how far you can go, you can go quite far with all of this. And Android x86 is sort of a project that I just like to talk about whenever I can to people. Some other features that this has, it's basically a text-based installer, so it's very simple to follow. You can, it does have secure booting as an option if you're using like UEFI or that type of thing. So installing on a UEFI disk is now supported. Multi-touch, audio, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all your sensors, camera, Ethernet are all pretty well supported. And you can also install this on a USB drive. You can install it on an SD card. One of the really neat things that I found was a taskbar that has been added to this release. It's an alternative launcher. Basically puts a start menu and recent apps on the tray on the top of the screen for a user to use. So it's more geared for a laptop, I would say, than what has been seen before with Android 86. Overall, I think that this particular release of Android x86 is probably the most stable that I have seen. And it is, without a doubt, it's getting me to be more interested in Android again. And I sort of go in phases with my interest in Android. So I'm real curious where this will lead if I keep working with it over the next few weeks. Am I going to have limited success, or am I going to run into some more issues with it? I don't know. And to me, it's all about having fun, about trying new things and learning as I go. Every time I do something like this or bring it up on the show, it's me trying something new, me wanting to talk to all of you about things that I've been working on. And this was just a spur of the moment thing, really. I was actually planning on, if you listen to the last couple of weeks' shows, I actually first downloaded Android x86 before I got into the free software stuff like Triskel and Pure OS. I actually installed Android x86 first and was going that route. And I got distracted and then went with the free software route for a few weeks, and now I'm back to Android x86 again. So if you've used Android x86, let me know and tell me your success stories or your failures. I'd love to hear it. Send me an email, mrptechreviews@gmail.com. You can also go visit my website, mrptechreviews.com. If you'd like to check out other great shows, all of the episodes are available on YouTube right now. And you can also, we publish the show on the Podnuts Network. So you go to podnuts.com, listen to my show there, and listen to all the other great shows. And hey, you know what? If you'd like to be a part of this show, you can join our Discord room. It's very easy. Just download the Discord app on whatever device you use. And if you go to my website, there's a big button that says Discord. Click on that and join us in the room. I think right now there's probably, 30, 35 people that are in the room. And we've got a lot of great people out there that contribute, and we have great conversations off air. So invite you all to join me on Discord. I'd love to hear from you and have you say hello and tell me where you're from. So that's going to do it for this week's episode. Next week's episode is going to be the last episode of the year, and I'll talk a little bit more about that next time. I'm looking forward to the holiday season, looking forward to the new year. So happy holidays to everybody. Happy New Year to everybody. If I don't get to hear from you in between now and then, and I hope everybody gets to spend time with their family and just have a great holiday season. That's going to do it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. We will see you next time.